Please have a seat. Hold up. We were kind of here for us. We were kind of waiting on Ross.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there it is.
No, it's okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, welcome to Governor's Formal Office, and I'm glad we're finally able to have this meeting. And I'm here to listen, so I'll let you all, if you want to start, but I want to hear what you have to say, and I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me.
First of all, we don't appreciate the dodging and the evasion and the misinformation about this meeting and how it took to get place. Because you knew that we wanted to talk about these issues. You could have stepped outside at Terrace Hill when we showed up, told your police to de-escalate the situation, come and seen it. You didn't show that leadership. We showed up in your office on Monday. They canceled session. We don't know why y'all canceled work. We showed up the next day. We were told we was going to meet you. Then we got siloed and told to make an appointment. We made 400 appointments. We showed up yesterday for our appointments. You weren't there to be seen. So that's the first thing we're frustrated about, is that it seems like this legislature and the entire government, the administration, is inaccessible when it comes to black people and their voices. That's the first problem. The second problem is you are sitting on one of the most racist criminal justice systems in the nation.
Yes.
If you look at the statistics across the board, whether it's marijuana incarceration, it's 5th worst. Whether it's the rate of incarceration for black African American men to white men in this state, 8 times. You're gonna have to start doing something now about that system. Now. And the first thing we think you can do is sign an executive order reinstating the voting rights of every island that's served a felony sentence with no bells and whistles attached, no restitution tied to it, no arbitrary charges that's tied to it. That's what has to happen for that to even release off your door even a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Because people are angry. People's lives are being ruined. All of us got brothers, sisters,
uncles,
cousins, uncles that have been siloed into the system unjustly, and we're tired.
Okay.
Yeah. You want me to take one or?
Go ahead.
All right. So yeah, the main thing I'm really focused on today is that executive order restoring felon voting rights.
Okay.
I know you guys are working on legislation to pass a constitutional amendment, which is fine. I don't agree with the restitution piece that's tied with it, but even then, I understand that the constitutional amendment has to pass out of 2 sessions, right? And you guys won't be back in session until 2021.
Yep.
So realistically, we're not looking at this amendment being passed for probably a year, right? And being in effect. That's unacceptable when we have a general election that's coming up in a few months in November. I live with my uncle. His name is Jerome. The first time he voted, since he was a teenager, since he was 18, was this past primary election, June 2nd.
Wow.
He spent some time in prison when he was in his 20s for a nonviolent offense. Completely, turned around his life when he came out. He's a small business owner now, black-owned business. And when he got that letter from you in the mail restoring his voting rights, I was there. I watched him cry because he was able to vote. It was powerful. You have the power right now to take away this stain that is on Iowa. There is a stain on Iowa because we are the only state in the country now, the only state in the country that does this. And you can make history with the sign of your pen by giving everyone their constitutional rights back because they deserve them. They earned them because they live in this country, they deserve to vote. And you have that power to take away this stain and make history in this state, making us the last country to change our laws and making everyone in this country be able to have their constitutional right to vote, no matter what. So please take this seriously. We all have family members that are affected by this. And it hurts to see our family members not being able to vote when they really want to vote. It's embarrassing for them because they want to participate in the process, and they're being forced out of it. And the one you signing individual requests, that doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It
That's
doesn't
not a
work.
systematic response.
It's not. You have the power to just blanket give everyone their right to vote back, and we're urging you to do that because we have bigger things to focus on.
Yes,
honestly.
we do.
We want to put pressure on the city. We want to put pressure and make real changes in Des Moines. But right now, we have to focus on this because it's
Yes.
urgent. We have an election coming up and our people need to vote.
Yes. And I think that it's really important to say that a lot of government officials, a lot of public figures are telling us that young folks need to be cordial and young folks need to do the right things and young folks don't need to be in the streets and don't need to be at business owners' homes. So like we're coming to you now, I believe, quite cordially.
Yep.
And despite the
Very much
anger,
so.
despite the frustration, despite all the hoops that we have to jump over. So we're doing this the proper way. So I hope that you can handle this in the proper way going forward.
I appreciate you doing that too. Thank you very much. Very much. I think, when we can sit down around the table, I think this last week is a great example of how you can have impactful change by sitting around the table, having a conversation, walking through issues that are important, talking about both sides, but finally coming to some compromise and some resolution and moving forward. This has been a priority of mine from the very beginning. I talked about it
Well, you
from the
could do
very
it at
first.
any time.
But I know, and I will, but it's also important that we make this change permanent because it shouldn't determine who sits in that chair. And that bouncing back and forth causes confusion and chaos, and people sometimes don't know if they have the right to do it or not.
But that's why I
and
said
then
that
in
the
the middle of it,
constitutional
and
amendment
so,
can go through, but you can sign the executive order
so,
right now.
like what I want to, I know that's an option, but I want to keep the coalition, and it is a broad array of stakeholders that are determined to get this done on a permanent basis, so it can't go back and forth. Because an executive order is temporary. If the next person comes in, they can flip it, and that
But
doesn't
you're
help.
until 2022.
But just hear me out too, okay?
We
so
are.
I hear you. I get it, and I want to do. I've made the calls. I try to either call as many of them as any of the individuals that I can, and then as we were trying to get them all done before the caucus, it was just a matter of getting them through and getting them their rights back so that they could have the right to participate in the caucus. And we got through all of them. It's not perfect, but we didn't have anybody that was waiting. I made that commitment that every request that I got, regardless of how much time that it took, we would go through and have that on it. I'm not saying that that's not willing to go the other way. So please don't hear that. I just want to tell you that in the interim, to keep the pressure on getting this done permanently, it's part of what that's part of what we're doing to get it done. So, we're working on it from all different angles.
What steps are you taking to ensure that happens, though? You're saying that you're listening and that you're hearing us,
to make sure it's done on a
but-
permanent basis.
but I feel as if you're listening to listen, not listening to understand, not listening to comprehend what we want.
So to get the permanent, to get that passed,
For sure.
I have brought legislators down, I have met with leaders, I have tried to build a broad-based coalition. People that don't normally even agree on anything have come together with this because they know how important it is, which I think speaks a lot about, it is embarrassing that we're the last state. I'm not proud of that. I don't want to be the governor of that. But anyway, so it's built a broad-based coalition, and we want to keep the pressure on to get it through so we can get it permanently done. And that means bringing legislators in and talking to them and talking about how important this is. To talk to them about when I call somebody and just how grateful and how appreciative they are to have the opportunity to be able to vote again and be a part of, to feel like they have a say in society and about issues that are important to them. I get it and I support what you're saying. So just
We need more than just you to support what we're
And
saying.
here's what we're We need saying. action.
Sign something.
We've got
We
a
need you
couple-
to do something. You have that power. So like he said, yes, it might be temporary. You're here till 2022. A lot can happen in these 2-3 years. So do what you do. We don't want to keep talking. We don't want to keep asking you for stuff. If you support us, then show us that. It's that simple. Enough is said. Really.
And also,
Thank you.
And also, for real, we've already spoke with Iowa ACLU. We've already spoke with the NAACP, Iowa, Nebraska, CCI, and they all suggest this. They all suggest this route. We know about the Constitution. We've been having this conversation. To me, it feels a little patronizing for you to explain the same thing that we've already been talking about every single day. We know all the situation. We came to the table. You've been delivered our demands. You know what we want. Those were well researched, well thought out, and well written out very clearly. So, enough, because we keep talking with politicians and they keep doing that. I understand you guys are doing work, but the state is behind. You guys are behind in that work. This will help you catch up.
Right. Can I ask, what is stopping you from signing the executive order and letting the constitutional amendment play out?
I didn't say going forward that that's not an option.
But
what I'm saying is I still want this to be done in a permanent manner.
Why is it an option and not a choice?
Legislators want to help me out here a little bit. Sometimes when you build in a coalition and you're trying to hold people accountable and getting them across the line, it takes some pressure sometimes. I don't know how else to say it in a right way, but so I'm trying to work with legislators to talk about how important it is, to talk about the individuals that I call, to talk about statistics. The statistics show that increases the percentage of the success for the individual. That's part of them re-entering society and being successful, a huge component of that. So, I mean, I'm just trying to continue to have those dialogues and keep a little pressure on to get them to take it to a vote so we can move it forward.
So I really appreciate that you say you're committed to making it permanent, because I think we're on the same page. We all want it to be permanent, right? Yeah. So what we really want is for you to commit right now to signing the executive order. And if you want some help, putting some pressure to get that thing permanent,
we got you.
We can give you some assistance to get that thing permanently down.
And Governor, I do understand the process, right? And
I didn't mean that in the way that it sounded.
Well, no, but
I've been a legislator.
Yeah, it can be difficult, but I think one thing that we have to understand is the climate and the environment in which we operate right now. Yeah. And I say that because it's meaningful to me, right? I come from Waterloo, historically in our state, right? But in the nation, past 3 years we've been the worst community for Black people in the nation. Yeah. Right? One of the most segregated cities.
Number one.
I know what the economy is. I mean, I've had to bury multiple students, and it's systemic because the right to vote, there's efficacy in that. There's a sense of value in that. Yeah. And understanding the makeup of our Iowa Congress, the likelihood is not there. So I think the frustration is that we feel as though there's a remedy while we want the permanent solution, and I support you in gaining that permanent solution. You know the things that we fight for. I know. But at the same time, I do believe that while we wait for that process, I don't believe that we should continue to disenfranchise people further while we wait for that, because there's no guarantee. And since there is no guarantee, potentially, it's almost, with the efforts we've seen to suppress voting, it goes much further than just not taking the action. Yeah. The ramifications seem grander than that. And that's why there's such a heightened sense of angst about it. And urgency, because this next election in November, for some of us, is the election that dictates what the rest of our lives look like. And we want to be able to have as many people who have earned their voice to do so. Or if we're not going to allow them to vote anymore, then they can't pay taxes, because you cannot have taxation without representation, right? But that is the way that you can have your voice. If I'm somebody who repaid my debt to society by going to this penal system that is punitive and does not help people grow, right? Just make sure that when you come out, you have more baggage than you did when you went in. But with that being the case, when they come out, if they're not allowed to vote, if they're not allowed to get a job, you have to check a box, then they're not allowed to be contributing members to society, and that's how recidivism happens. So I do think that we have to push forward. I do believe that an executive order is important for two reasons. One, it bridges that time from that gap. But it also puts that pressure on people, because imagine being someone who had the right to vote. This legislature, no matter how hard you're working to push us to get it there, imagine when this legislature doesn't act, and those people who have the right to vote rescinded because the legislature did not act, but you did. Now you have the entire state behind you to make sure that action happens. That's not my political stance, that's my personal stance. I think it's important. And I'm ready to be helpful in that movement any way I possibly can. But I do think it behooves us to take this critically and think about it in a way that helps us. I think immediate action isn't good.
Don't make this just an option. Make it a choice.
Exactly.
It may not be an easy choice to you, but I think...
Because I think you have to understand, like, this demand is something to rectify racism. Right. And racism has been a process that's lasted hundreds of years. We don't want to wait anymore.
We've been waiting.
We can't lose any more lives. We can't lose any more rights. we have nothing to lose and you have everything to gain, including hundreds of thousands of voters in this state that you claim to care about. And you can do that right now.
Yes, ma'am.
You're making history.
I'd like to hear from Akeo if that's okay. I'm wondering what Akeo is thinking, to be honest.
What you're thinking?
Yeah, you gotta speak up.
What you're thinking? Your thoughts?
The governor and I and all the legislators we have talked about, doing an executive order. We do agree that an executive order will be there, and also to be, have it permanent. Because what we've lived through is that when Governor Vilsack did it, and when Governor Branstad came in, and I think unfortunately you're a recipient of that, coming through because of the way he did it, because he made an announcement that would be his first act of business, was to rescind that executive order.
And that was a racist Douglas.
Yeah.
That was a racist Douglas.
And he gave his speech that night, left his speech, and came to the Capitol, and he followed through with what he had to say. Unfortunately, you're the recipient of that, just like we're the recipient of white privilege. Okay? So I think that if we look at the permanency, and then we look at also, the timely manner of doing the executive order, that may put more pressure on the Senate and the House to say this is what needs to be done.
Yes,
That's still giving them leverage, to be able to feel they did what they needed to do. Because also there's a political side. And understand the political side, but I think it gives cover, for those who, feel that their process wasn't impeded. You're just saying, now, let's do this at this point. And I think that's what everybody's asking for consideration.
Yeah.
Is just to
I
look
hear
at
you,
it
and
that
I
way.
appreciate. So I'll have one more. So thank you, okay. I appreciate that very much, and Ross, thank you too. I appreciate, and all of you, your comments. I'm going to meet with the legislature, with the leaders one more time today. We've got another meeting scheduled when we're done here, and we're going to have another very heartfelt conversation. And then, how about if we meet again next week? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Can we have a scheduled meeting next week?
What day?
Schedule meeting for what?
What day? Like what
Well,
are we?
just continue to sit around the table and talk about next
Yeah,
steps.
so
Talk
you
about
sign an
this.
executive order.
Yeah.
So
we
I'm going to have
until you
another.
sign it.
I need.
No, you guys, you can't work that way. I
Think
listen to
about
what you
the
say.
thing.
I listen to me. I hear what you're saying. I hear.
But do you feel it? Are you
I-
understanding?
Yes.
Then
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? Because right now,
I also
it's like
don't believe it's a white woman's place to tell black folks how and how not to work for racial reform.
you have never
Just
been.
personally.
You have never been
Oh.
on our positions, and it's really like you're playing in our face, and you're smirking. You've been smirking this whole time. There's nothing funny. This
I
is
am
our
not.
lives. This is what we go through every single day, and you have the power. You literally have the power to sign something today, and you want to tell us, oh, let's have another meeting. Let's talk some more. We don't want to talk anymore. How many people have to die?
This is
How many
400
people have
years of
to
talking
rot
outside
in
of the
jail?
door right now.
So many years. What are you going to do? We are tired of talking. We are tired of marching, of sitting in jail, of not having the same rights that you have. So what are you going to do? You're going to sign it or you're not. Like, it's come to this point. And you want to tell us to calm down, to let's talk some more.
I
We
didn't
don't
say
want to
calm
do that.
down, and I am certainly not smirking at all. I understand how serious this is. I understand. I mean, I can't begin to understand what all you're dealing with. I'm not saying that, but I understand the gravity of getting this done, and it has been a priority of mine since I was sworn in as the governor of the state. Not quick enough. It will continue to be a
It's
priority.
all of the power is in your hands right now. You are the
You
one
can
who
do it
decides
right
this.
now.
You are the one with the
So if
pen
it's
who
been a
just
priority,
signs the
then go
document.
ahead.
And think about it for your own selfish personal reasons.
I wouldn't do it for
I know, but one, you will be making history, and two, we will lay off you a little bit.
We will leave you alone.
We will stop being
We
annoying.
will literally cross
I'm
that
going to do
debate.
it because if I do it, it's going to be because it's the right thing to do.
Well, it is the right. We know it's the right thing to do. We already know that.
So hard.
I am still working with the legislature. I want the opportunity to to work with them
So,
to get it done.
That's
what I'm asking for you from.
If not now,
Can I
then
just-
when?
Have the
Can I
opportunity if
ask-
it's been a priority.
Can I ask it? So you're saying I need more direct language because I'm not quite understanding what you're actually getting at. Are you saying that if you sign the executive order, you think the Republicans will respond about the Constitution?
No, what I'm saying is I want the opportunity. It's been very important to me that this be a permanent solution.
What's
because
permanent?
I don't want it bouncing back and forth. And so I have tried to work very hard to build a very broad-based coalition of Iowans that can help me get this done.
But you have to understand that the only way that that coalition finishes its work is through this, is through us. Like that bill that got passed yesterday and the way it got passed, we also are upset because everybody in your party refused to acknowledge our role in creating that moment. Not one person in your party mentioned the protest. They mentioned coronavirus, they mentioned God, they mentioned you, they mentioned their leaders, they mentioned everything except this. Right? So it's like, it's only so long we're gonna keep letting you guys write us out of things, erase our voices, not hear what we have to say. This is a moment where we have all the pressure in this state house, and we need, as a community and as a people and as a state, we need this executive order so we can move forward, so we can start to help you make it permanent. But right now, I don't think you're understanding that in your time to create a permanent solution, we are still in a reality where every day our uncles and our brothers and our cousins can't vote. So this is where the compromise has to happen. We're willing to help you in whatever way we can create a lasting solution, but we need you to sign this executive order.
Now, like we need it now, like
Please.
It's not an ask, it's not any of those things. This is something our community fundamentally needs to exist in a way that is really just and equitable and all of those things.
I also would like for you to know that this November, I will not be able to vote. So this is important to me. I've also watched my uncle, who did not have rights for over 30 years, receive his letter, receive like the process and everything, and he also cried when he got his rights back. So this is important to me. So if I can't vote, I need somebody else to. And I apply pressure on other people to go vote. Because I grew up and I was taught that voting is a privilege, especially for black folks. We, back in the day, they used to have to write and sign contracts to be able to vote.
Pass tests.
Pass poll tests.
And poll tax. And that's exactly what it is. And that's exactly what it is now. You have to pay this poll tax, this restitution, in order to be able to vote.
One of the things, so that we're all on the same page, because of you, we passed some very crucial legislation because of the pressure, because you guys were there and you brought that. Now, what happened was that process started 2 weeks ago so that we could go through a process. This also has to go through a short process for this to take place, because the key is relationships were built. To do an executive order, and if the government even could do it today, to be honest.
She
But
could
to
do it right now.
Let him, I want to hear what he has to say.
If an executive order was done today without dealing with those relationships that the governor has built, then we take steps back in what we need to do to continue to get some other legislation done. And all I'm just saying,
we're talking about politics and we're talking about what is right and what's wrong.
but we're talking about a process. It took us 2 weeks to get that legislation done yesterday. I mean, from sitting at this table to walking away from the table, I was saying is that let's not ignore a process. Because that's what you have done was made us to look at our processes and to move them a lot quicker. The fastest ever in 14 years I've seen a bill pass in here was because of y'all. That's the fastest I ever seen a bill in 14 years. I don't know what happened before me, but in 14 years, that was able to be done because folks sat down at this table and we were able to pull the Republicans together, the Democrats together, the leadership together, and say, this has to be done.
So can I ask, what will it take to get the executive order? What conversations, like, we gotta be understanding as to what you're dealing with, because I can't just take out, well, we have another meeting with her out there.
Right.
We can't.
Yeah, that's not gonna suffice. They're gonna be even more pissed than we came in here.
Yeah. Part of that process will be, as the governor said, meeting with her people this afternoon. Meeting and talking about processes as far as doing the executive order. What does that do? Can we continue to work on that? On the permanency at the same simultaneously doing the executive order. If that's people, can we get that on both sides of the aisle? Because once that's done, we need to be in full support on both sides, the Republicans and Democrats on both sides, so that we have that support. And then, like you just said, Matthew, move to that next level, get it on a permanent basis. That needs to be done today. This is Friday, So that means meeting with them on Friday and then coming back with the meeting on Monday, Tuesday.
Monday's fine.
So
I'm
when
fine
we
with that.
when we come to our meeting on Monday, will you have the executive order drafted for us to see?
When I come to just let me go through the process. I am not.
Can is it possible?
It is a possibility. It is a possibility. It is. But you need. Can I ask at least, as the KO said, to go through the process? It was powerful on that floor yesterday to see the unity and to listen to people speak about what just happened in a relatively short timeline. And it's the beginning. It's not the end. It is just the start. And the more that we can continue to build on that, and this would be another example, I think, where we could potentially see that same kind of unanimous support moving forward. And then we talk about the next step that we're taking and the next step that we're taking. And people are, we worked hard on that. Raj, you started it. You brought the legislation to the table.
Thank you.
You brought the legislation to the table. And we worked on it.
And I met with Roz the day that he said he was going to bring it forward, on that Wednesday, when we went to Mayor County's crib. And he said, if y'all get to the streets, if y'all do these things organized, if y'all put the pressure on in the right ways, we're going to get it through. And that's exactly what happens. So now that we've seen that there is a way to move forward, I would like to agree that we can have the language to talk about on Monday. That's what I would like to agree.
The thing that's concerning me is that I feel like you're using the Republicans here in Capitol as a cover when you don't have to get anyone's permission to sign an executive order.
That's true.
I'm not using that. I'm trying to move both processes forward. I'm trying to make sure that I can still, and it's both. I'd like both parties to sign.
Here's the thing, Jalen. To have this create conflict is going to make our lives more difficult too. If we can wait till Monday, which it's not really going to make a difference as far as the actual election. If we can give her till Monday for real, and keep the pressure on, and we can really go and tell the Republicans all over the House today. Now let me finish. We can go and tell the Republicans and the Democrats that they need to work together with Kim on this.
Would you go both? It's not this. I'm not trying to throw my. I know, but I don't. We're both. I'm just.
I think every Democrat in here would agree with it, though. So that's the thing.
I know we're running short on time.
Okay.
So I'm going to get back to caucus, but I do want to say this last thing because it did feel different yesterday, right? My ask is that the momentum that's built is needed we cannot let this moment pass for us to take opportunity to do great things. And I don't have fear about that, but I have concern about that. Yeah. Because if we allow the energy to go, the history of our country says that it takes so much for us to get back to the point where we are right now. And I think we have to act soon. I do believe that because momentum is on our side. The relationships are on our side. The atmosphere is in our favor. And I think this is a time in which any gains towards racial and social justice are nonpartisan because that groundwork has been laid. But that doesn't last. We know in politics And with all due respect, and as you know, in politics, momentum is everything sometimes.
Yep.
We have that.
Yep.
We have to utilize it to do great things. And I
Yeah.
think the stopgap measure is important. I would be extremely supportive of an executive order as soon as possible. I would be. But for me, it is difficult to wait. It is. It just is. I mean, I know my colleagues on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
And the leadership of saying, this is what we have to do for the people. Some will fall in line. Those who don't typically won't get it. And I think
I know that.
And if we need help with those individuals, let us be allies and help you if we're willing to do so. But I do think that I don't want to let this moment pass. And the momentum is on our side in our favor. We've created that together. We have to ride that as well. I think that's important.
I agree. I said that to both of you yesterday.
Yeah.
I said to you. I didn't have the chance to work with you before. It's good.
Can we create a good faith agreement so we can have something to take out there and be like, this is what we have for Monday?
We're gonna look at. You're gonna allow me to work the process, correct?
How long is that?
Depending on,
process.
She's
depending
working
on
it
what,
today.
Today.
depending
And
on
then-
what we.
And then we'll come back on Monday, and we'll have some potential language to look at.
Potential, or we will have language to look at.
I can have language to look at.
All right.
Cool. Thank you.
Will you give me the time, though? I mean, this is really important. Give me today.
Governor
And
Reynolds.
just, Akeo, I need, just let me try to work through it so we can keep both moving forward. If you give me the chance to do that, I would really, really appreciate it.
Monday,
We appreciate it.
And then we'll meet, we check, say, when they're leaving on the time? It'll be Monday for sure. I just need to make sure there's not something scheduled for 11.